Welcome to the group discussion for the container security group within GitLab. And we'll go ahead and get started here. Just an FYI for everyone, I'm going to be doing the CEO Shadow program coming up mid-August. So I'm going to do the absolute best that I can to make sure that we have everything lined up ahead of time. Basically, the guidance is to treat that as time off. So, even though I'm still here, I'm not here. So again, I'm hoping over the next few weeks to have enough of a backlog and everything built up that we can make that transition smoothly. I know that also is going to be across a release timeframe. So again, I'm going to do as best I can to make sure we have things lined up for 13.4 in advance of that.
Looking forward to hearing what your observations are afterwards. It should be very interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. I saw yours, and hopefully I can produce the same great summation afterwards. I don't know that I can match what you did, but I am looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, no, good stuff. I learned quite a bit, and I think everybody does, so good stuff.
All right, Tiago, I think you've got the first two on our agenda.
I do, but apparently the container security independence issue does not need to be addressed anymore. So that's an easy one.
Correct.
The second one, I was hoping
on
to
that
break.
Second one,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we just push that out a milestone. I'm taking a look at it and I realized there are a couple of comments there that I managed to miss. I don't know why it just got buried in my inbox. So
it's
probably
far enough
not ready
away
for 13.3 anyway.
Yeah, I agree. It's far enough away that we can keep going asynchronous. So let me make a note here. Ooh, thank you.
Okay. So then the last one is just planning breakdown for the alert dashboard MVC. I think we're finally ready to finish breaking this down. Zamir, I saw your comment on there that I just responded to moments ago, so I don't expect you to have already read that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me just a minute while I get this into position. Zoom in so everyone can see. So again, I know we've talked about this like for 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times now. Well, that's way too zoomed in. But the idea is to create an experience where security analysts can go in and review and triage their high priority alerts so that they can decide how best to respond. What those alerts are to be defined based off of the policies that they create. There we go. So to really implement this, in its entirety, there will be a dependency on the other work that we have to enable create, edit, and delete policy in the UI. But the idea is that as you're coming in here, you're building out a policy. You can have multiple rules that are ANDed or, well, initially just ORed together. And then you're able to say whether you want to allow the network traffic, but then you'll also get this new action button at the bottom. And right now there's only one action that we'll support, which is generating an alert to GitLab. So when I click that, the new action button goes away. But the idea is that this will be extensible so that in the future, the other active response actions like send an email or generate a Slack message or whatever other active responses that we want to do can be added here as actions. But for this scope, it'll just be sending an alert to GitLab. So that's really where that gets defined. I know earlier on, Arthur, we talked about sending this through basically having Hubble filter the events that are being monitored by Cilium, and then we'll probably need some kind of agent, is what you mentioned before, to actually send that over to GitLab and generate an alert. But in the end, that alert would come into GitLab and it'll be displayed on a new tab. Pull up the designs just so I can walk through this all the way. So we'll have a new tab here in threat monitoring for alerts, and then the alerts will populate there where for now, again, it's just for the MVC. The only action you can really take is to dismiss them one at a time or to filter them by environment or policy. Obviously, there's a lot more that we want to do after that, but again, trying to keep this whole thing as minimal as it reasonably can be for an MVC. That's what we have in mind for the first pass.
Well, I have a question about pagination. There's nothing in the designs for it. What did you have in mind? The infinite scroll that we have, like in the security dashboards, or proper pagination? I think the GraphQL limitation that we had before with pagination is gone, so that's definitely an option.
That's great to hear. We'd probably have to defer to Kyle on that one, since that's really a question of design, but I'm assuming that we would go with pagination just to mimic as much as we can the experience that exists today for alerts and monitor. And I can drop a link for that. Here we go. But today, if you go to operations alerts, you have a very similar type of experience for where we're headed. And if I go to all alerts, so I get too many, they just paginate it here at the bottom. So again, Kyle would be the ultimate DRI on that question, but that's what I would imagine.
I've added the question. I've added the question to the design. Let's see what it says.
So that being said, let me come up to the Epic and see if there are any other questions or requirements that I can help clarify. It's also worth noting, I guess, that for now, because it is an MVC, we're only attempting to do this for Cilium. To start off, we'll add in the other technologies later, but just, let's take off one thing at a time. And since Cilium is further along than everything else, it makes sense to start there. So any other questions about these requirements? Is this detailed enough that you feel we can move it to refinement, or are there other outstanding concerns or questions?
There's no questions from my side on that.
Okay, thanks, Samir.
Arthur, you had questions a month ago, but I don't see anything new.
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. I comfortable with moving this to refinement. There'll be probably a little bit more work refining these. I'm guessing because of the model, the database model work that we need to build in. We're seeing that a lot coming up in. Well, I'm seeing that coming a lot in the threading sites MRs, where maintainers are constantly querying us on volumes and limits and performance. So if we can get ahead of the curve here, I saw that you and Wayne have already agreed with what I mentioned there. So just reminding that there'll be a little bit of a build up to understand how we can do that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, I think that's all we had to discuss. Since we have a little extra time, Tiago, do you think it's worth discussing synchronously the upcoming priorities? And
I'd love to
take on for 13.3.
I'd love to, yeah. I just posted a message in Slack before this group discussion. Zamir replied, thanks for that. I don't know if you saw it, Arthur, but the question is, we've got a very large, shiny epic coming up, the policy management one. It's about 24 points. Our velocity has been in the ballpark of 10. So by all measures, it's a stretch to think that we can deliver that in a single iteration. But playing in its favor, it's very well defined. I think it's probably our best work in breaking down an epic and refining it. And I was looking for a bit of advice around what do you two think about being able to parallelize that work, getting both of you in there. If does that get us a lot closer to finishing it in a single iteration, or we might as well not bother and go for the active response one, because it's a more certain win. That was a long, short summary, but that was the message.
I think we have to start somewhere with policy building. It's clear that we are not going to deliver it in one cycle. It doesn't matter if we will start with active response. It will not help us ultimately deliver policy building. I think we can just feature flag it and work across release cycles quite easily. There is no problem with that. Question about working in parallel, there is definitely some work that can be split quite efficiently. At least like there is a clear boundary between front end and back end work. And even in backend, there is a split between changing controls and introducing support for serial network policies. So yeah, it's definitely doable from my perspective. Yeah, I don't know if you cram on it, we can get quite far. It looks intimidating, but I think again, you said it, it's well defined. We have even some prototype going on top of that, and we had some piece of code in that prototype that we can reuse on the front end side. Yeah, from the perspective that we have to start somewhere, I would say it's, and if policy build is a priority, we have to start with it. But yeah, it's up to Sam to define which one is more important right now, I guess.
Yeah, so my thought was just, would it be worth just, I mean, it's just kind of like setting a goal for ourselves, a really big, hairy, audacious stretch goal of, we've got 2 developers on the team, and if we just focus on this and nothing else, can we conquer this really big one and get it done in 13.3? I mean, all the numbers say no because it's so big, but it just seems like a fun goal to work for.
Yeah, we humans and we love a challenge.
Right.
No, I mean, I personally agree with that. It's an interesting piece of work, and I would be keen to start working on it. But you often mentioned in the Slack that reviews is a huge unknown factor these days, review times, and like personally this cycle, I struggled quite a bit with that specifically. So even if we'll be able to get quite far, like delivering so many MRs in a cycle is really challenging. And for me, it's almost the most challenging part of this work is just the amount of MRs that has to go through.
I got a question, Sam. If something is released behind a feature flag, can you still do a release post about it, or we don't do that until?
I can answer that. So the policy is, in order to present it to the user, you have to either remove feature flag completely, or you have to enable feature flag by default, and then you can create a documentation where you say that feature flag is enabled, it's a feature in development, please test it and present a way to disable it if necessary. That's the only 2 ways to do it. As far as I am aware of the documentation.
Doesn't help us. The reason I was asking is if we get to a point where, for instance, we don't have removal, or we have some of these things done, and we don't feel comfortable turning on the feature flag, do we still
in that
count
case
as a partial victory?
we would just do the release post the next iteration, but
yeah. Well, Sam,
It doesn't. My understanding is it doesn't need to be default on to put in the release post. I think you can announce it and say it's hidden. You can be default off and let customers know that they can turn it on. You can still do a release post if you want to do that. And this is a point of contention, point of discussion across engineering and PM that I have been pulled into, not just for our team, across all, that I'm going to start looking into. Not specific to release posts, but just in terms of feature flags, how many are turned on by default, how many are not, how many do we add each release, things like that. Again, not specific to our team, just overall engineering.
I actually have been a reviewer for MR that's related to that feature flag removal. When I read the docs, it's actually clear that the only two ways to do it is either remove feature flag and write the docs, or enable feature flag by default, and then also mention how to revert in the documentation. Like
that's what's supposed to happen, I think. That's not what is always happening reliably.
Yeah.
Well, I would not want to do a release post item if it was still behind a feature flag. I just don't want to get everyone
behind a feature flag or behind a feature flag and default off. Are you okay with it being behind a feature flag and default on? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're the DRI on the release posts, Sam. So yeah, and that sounds reasonable to me as well.
Yeah, and Sam needs to do the kickoff video tomorrow, I believe. So, do we have enough here to decide if we want to lock in active response as a short item, like a deliverable, versus the policy management as a long stretch? Any preferences? How does everyone feel about it?
I think the majority of us would like maybe to give it a try and see what happens, how far we make it there. Because we are going to have to do this work anyways. The reason I post the reply over there is just that sometimes we give the impression that if we split by 2, we double the time. And with the MR cycles, maybe if you have to change the same file over and over again, it just accumulates a little bit. It's not that straightforward time.
Yeah, and you get conflicts if you were both working on the same file. That's problematic. Yeah. So Sam, take it or leave it.
All right. So it sounds like it's positive. So okay, so the plan for 13.3 is we're going to focus just on that. I'm going to, any other priorities that come up, I'm going to push them off. We'll push them all off as much as we can so that we can just double down and focus on this one. I mean, at the end of the day, if it misses 13.3 and it's released in 13.4, it's okay. But like you said, Tiago, I mean, we're all humans. We like a challenge. I would love to take this on as a challenge for 13.3 if the team is open to it.
Be a good surprise for you to come back too from your CEO shadow.
CEO shadow, yep. Absolutely.
Zamir, with that in mind, should we park the? You picked up some stuff in active response. Should we park that?
Yeah, and there's a good point on there because for Falco Sidekick, they're going to host the Helm chart themselves. They're figuring out the best place for that still. So then, he posts on the issue that might take a couple of weeks for them to decide that. So it might be a good pause for that. So then we don't have to duplicate anything.
All right. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll have to talk with Wayne about what we can do if we hit our goal, but we've got to have some kind of, celebration if we make it, because that's a big one.
All right,
Talking about
Wayne.
Celebrations.
Reach into those deep pockets you've got there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we can finally get approved the invite a llama to our meeting.
Yes.
We tried to get that for our group meeting, and Lindsay tried to get that approved, and I think we asked a little bit later, and we didn't. So I think it's like $100 US to a charity for
hey,
some petting zoo.
This feature is worth at least 2 llamas, all right?
Yes.
At least 2.
At least.
Or a llama and a goat.
Developer.
Funny. So,
and I get to name one of them.
There you go. I want to know what the name's going to be. So just quick concept. Thanks, Arthur and Zamir, for the help with the contribute demo. that Philippe and Nico and I are working on really help to, and it's really good experience as well as somebody who isn't on the team trying to use things. So I think we can actually take some of those learnings on how easy it is to install. I think he might be the first person, Nico, installing it in Azure versus GKE. So good stuff, and really appreciate the help. Looking forward to that demo. Nico said everything is working. Nico and Philippe said everything's working now that they were expecting, and now we're just working on it. So it's going to be pretty neat. We're going to do a hack live, show how we catch that hack in this application, and then show how we can turn things on in blocking mode to block the hack attempt. And so Nico's going to be the developer who wrote the buggy app. Philippe's going to be the security person looking at the logs, and I'm going to be the bad guy.
That's great. It's going to be recorded?
Recorded in the Contribute customer conference, and then which is free. Anybody can register, GitLabbers and any customers, or actually anybody. And then they're going to be available. They're going to like broadcast the recordings live since it's all remote, and then they're going to make them available recorded. So it's a simple little app. All it does is it's an app. I actually got the idea from the CTF that the security team did. It's an app that's designed where you put an IP address and it'll ping it and give you the results, but it doesn't validate. So you can actually put a semicolon after the IP address and put a command to the container, like cat Etsy shadow. And
regular Kevin Mitnick, Wayne Mitnick.
No, definitely not. I'm not that cool. And great job, Tiago, on the draft blog post for the container security stuff, kind of relating container security and what we're doing there to various MITRE attack.
Yeah, it was fun to write and good feedback. I wonder what the response will be. So
I'm planning to promote it as well. And we're timing that with the
29th.
Post, is that right?
29th of July.
29th of July. Is that going around the time of the release post, roughly?
Yeah.
So the release post comes out with the release on the 22nd.
22nd, so the week after.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
It's a Wednesday. It was originally for a Friday, the 24th, but then marketing recommendations
and that, if I remember correctly, covers host and network?
It does, including something that was sort of in the works, and Sam called out. We were looking to hold it because it's a lot of it is manual. Well, it's all there, but you have to do a bit of manual work to install.
I think it's going to really help to educate folks, both GitLab users and prospects, and just general public about how to do container security.
Yeah, there are no groundbreaking sites there. It's just common stuff that's there. Like, look, these things happen. Here's how here are the tools that we have to stop it.
Yep. Good stuff. I think that was the end
All
of
right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, have a great day.
Good day. Bye.